greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to another week on the channel, and we're going to kick off on this Monday with a viewer's request for the band Vanilla Fudge. They're an American rock band, of course, really well known for their slow, extended, heavy rock arrangements. Some of their own and quite a lot of covers. The band's original lineup was organist Mark Stein and bassist and vocalist Tim Bogart, lead guitarist and vocalist Vince Martell, and of course drummer and vocalist Carmine Appice. They recorded 5 albums between 1967 and 69 before disbanding in 1970. They started touring again as recently as 2022 with 3 of the 4 original members, and that was Mark Stein, Vince Martell and Carmine Appice, with Pete Bremery on bass. Bogart retired in 2009 and sadly passed away in 2021. Now, they have been cited as one of the few American bands that linked psychedelia and what became heavy metal, and as a proto-prog band. But in all, though, they did release 9 albums. So they released them after the initial split, etc. So we're going to look at the 9 albums. I like quite a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of cover stuff on this, and some of the arrangements are good and some are not. So yeah, I can take this band. I don't dislike them, I don't love them completely, if you get my drift. I just like some of their tunes. So, coming in at number 9, this is the second album that was released in early 1968, and it is called The Beat Goes On. Now, the album doesn't actually contain actual songs, but rather a sound collage featuring many different elements, the voices of world leaders past and present. Really sort of psychedelic idea thing. And the players on there are Carmine, Tim Bogart, Vince Martell and Mark Stein. So it's basically side 1 is it's split up into phases. It's a totally bizarre album. The first thing on here is called Sketch. I don't mind that. It's got some really nice piano work from Mark. I don't mind that. Then it goes into phase 1, and it's an intro by Sonny Bono. Strange, wonderful Hammond organ. Then we get 18th Century, variations on a theme by Mozart. The Vermento number 13 in F major. 46 seconds of these sort of sounds. Then we get 46 seconds of 19th century Old Black Joe. Then you just get these little samples. We've got 20th century, Don't Fence Me In, the 12th Street Rag, In the Mood, Hound Dog, a little bit of Hound Dog. Yeah, 43 seconds. And then they do this, they do some Beatles, and you get I Want to Hold Your Hand, I Feel Fine, Day Tripper, She Loves You, Hello, Goodbye. Then we go on to phase 2. Now this is probably the best bit on here. It's their interpretation of Beethoven's Fur Elise and Moonlight Sonata. Absolutely really clever how they've done it, and I don't mind that. Then they get The Beat Goes On, number 2, which is about a minute. Then we get The Beat Goes On side 2, phase 3. Now this is voice time. It's got Neville Chamberlain doing a speech, Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, John F. Kennedy. It's clever how they do it, but it's not music. It's, you know, taking all of their famous speeches and all that sort of thing. Then phase 4. Then you get this original thing, The Merchant and the Game Is Over. It's quite psychedelic, and I quite like it. Then we get The Game Is Over. Real weird thing. Um, it is very strange. I find this album very bizarre, even for me. Now, I like some bizarre stuff, but this is, some of it's not even comprehensible for me. I can't get on with this. I couldn't listen to this all the way through. I did it in stages. I don't own this album, and I think I know why. I just didn't get on with it. There may be people out there that love this album. For me, I just couldn't get on with it. I liked some of the things they did, very adventurous and very psychedelic. So I'm only going to give this one an RTO ranking of 2 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 8, we got a 1984 now, when they'd reformed, and this is their 6th album, and it's called Mystery. We've got Carmine Appice on the drums, Tim Boger on the bass, Mark Stein on lead vocals and keyboards, and playing the guitars on this is a chap called Ron Mancuso, or Mancuso. First track is called, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat today, Gesundheit. Golden Age Dreams. It's not a bad track. I like the guitar work on this. Still got that definitive Vanilla Fudge sound. I don't mind that track. It's pretty good. Then we get Jealousy. Very 80s, I'm afraid. It's got a great bass line from Tim, though. It's really good. And Carmine's drums, a little bit 85'd with the production, but it's not a bad performance by Carmine. Then we get the title track, Mystery. I just don't like it. It's very 80s pop, which just does not suit this band. Under Suspicion, even the horrible keyboards of the 80s has crept in on this. Not very good. It Gets Stronger, too poppy, too 80s. It just doesn't do anything for me. Walk On By, I don't mind this. It's got a great guitar solo on it, and it's more like, yeah, you can sort of say, yeah, that's Vanilla Fudge. My World Is Empty Without You, another shocking track. I can't even put words to it without swearing. So I'm not going to bother. Just stop now. Yeah, that's what they should have done. Hot Blood, very, very poor track again. It's just, I don't know what they were thinking. Why, you're not a pop band. They just didn't sound that. And then the last track, very sloppy sort of track called The Stranger. Unfortunately, I don't have this one either. And again, I know why. It is just cheesy keyboards. It's the best track is the best of the worst, really. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay, then, coming in at number 7, we got the 8th album released in 2007. And it is called Out Through the Indoor, which is a play, it's a Led Zeppelin cover album. It's a play on the In Through the Outdoor. It's pretty good. And then in September 2022, they remastered the album and called it Vanilla Zeppelin, and they had a different cover. So playing on this is Carmine Appice, Tim Bogart, Vince Martell, Mark Stein, and we've got additional personnel: Teddy Zigzag Andreas on backing vocals, Tom Vittorio on backing. So the first song they have a bash at is the Immigrant Song. Didn't sound right. It's got keyboards in it, and it doesn't. And it's too slow. They've slowed it down like they do on most of their tracks, and it just didn't work. Then they had a bash at Ramble On. Oh dear, what have they done to this? Mothered it. Trampled Under Form. Now this one isn't too bad. They did a pretty good version of this. I quite like that one. Dazed and Confused. There's trumpets on it. which is different. Yes, all right. Then we have Black Mountain Side. Not too bad. I've heard worse versions of this. Fall in the Rain. Yeah, it's slow enough without them slowing it down even more. Babe, I'm gonna leave you. I don't mind this. Obviously, this was a cover that Zeppelin did, and it's an Anne Breeden song, and it's a half decent version of it. To be quite honest, I don't mind it. Dancing Days. It's not a bad. I mean, it's one of the latest songs from Zepp. It's okay. Then we get Moby Dick. Moby Dick. It's a very good interpretation by Carmine. I mean, it's never going to be as good as John, is it? But Carmine is a great drummer, and I think he does a very, very good version of it. All My Love, to be honest, it's not a bad interpretation of this song. I don't mind it. Then they do Rock and Roll. It's not too bad. I've heard worse. The best cover version I've heard of this is done by Heart. But yeah, it's Rock and Roll, and everyone has a go at that. And the last one on here is Your Time Is Gonna Come. It's okay. Personally, I thought they were very brave to cover an old album of Led Zeppelin songs in the style of Vanilla Fudge. Some worked, some didn't. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 6. This is from 2015, and it's the most current album in the catalogue, and it's called The Spirit of 67. Now it's another covers album, and on here you've got on bass and vocals Pete Bremy, drums Carmine Appice, lead guitar and rhythm guitars Vince Martell, and the Hammond organ and lead vocals and anything to do with the keyboard is Mr. Mark Stein. First up is a cover of Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine. Love the original. Love Creedence Clearwater Revival's version. This version, no, I don't. I've slowed it down to a snail pace, and it just doesn't sound right. Then we get a great track from the Box Tops, The Letter, and it isn't a bad version of this one. I like it's done in the way that Vanilla Fudge just take things, slow it down to, but it's a really good version. I don't mind it. Then we have the Who's I Can See for Miles. Too slow. Then they do a Doors track, Break On Through to the Other Side. Never do a Doors cover unless you're really sure about it. Not very good at all. Doesn't sound right. Then they do a Smokey and the Robinson and the Americans track, the great Tracks of My Tears. I don't actually mind this version. I love the song anyway, but I think Vanilla Fudge do a really good version of it. Then they do a Monkeys track, I Am Believer, and they're renowned for taking it down a notch or two. And this one actually works. I quite like that version. Then we got Gimme Some Love in the Spencer Davis Group. I quite like this song. It works well, and it's probably my favourite cover on this album. Really is good. Then we have Buffalo Springfield's What It's Worth. It should be a quirky track. It just doesn't work as a slowed down thing. No. Then we have Rolling Stones' Ruby Tuesday, and it works. It's a really good version of it. I don't mind it. And then we get Procol Harum's A Whiter Shade of Hail. It's not as good as Procol Harum's, but it works being slowed down like it is. Then we got Let's Pray for Peace. It's an original thing, and it's not a bad song actually. pretty good. Vanilla Fudge, as I said, were renowned for taking people's songs and slowing them down to a snail's pace. Again, some worked, some didn't. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.5. Okay, then coming in at number 5, we have the 8th album from 2002, and it is called The Return. So we got T.M. Stevens does bass on one of the tracks, Tim Bogart does the rest, and then we got Carmine on the drums, Vince on the vocals and guitars, and organ is by Bill Pascali. First track on here is called Ain't That Peculiar. I like this. It's probably one of the best tracks on the album. It's got some lovely swirly keyboards here, and hasn't got Mark Stein on it, but Bill Pascali does a good job, and I like that. Then we get a Supremes track, You Keep Me Hanging On, a classic from the Supremes. You can recognise it as the song, but it's just too slow. Tearing Up My Heart, great track. Great drumming here from Carmine. And the build of the organ, I do like that. Shotgun, a remake of one of their other songs, so we'll talk about that later. People Get Ready. I like this. It's a nice, gentle song, as most of theirs are. It's pretty good. Take Me For a Little While. It's okay. Just needs a little bit more beef behind it. Good Living. I like this track. Some great guitar work here from Vince. Pretty solid track. I Want It That Way. The organ on this is really good, and it really sets the track off. It's a great little bit of drumming from Carmine as well. Need Love. Pretty good. Vince, his vocals are good here. He's a pretty good singer. Does a fine job on that. Then we get a cover of the Zombies, She's Not There. The slower version, of course, but it's pretty good. Then we have another cover, Season of the Witch by Donovan. It's a great track, and this is a very psychedelic version of it, and it works. I do like that version. And then we got probably the worst ever cover of this song I have ever heard it. Once again, they've extended it to 7 minutes 12, and it's an absolutely naff version of Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy. It's horrible. Not the best track to end the album on. Certainly some mixed bag on here. Some of the original tracks are pretty good. I don't know too much of this about this album because I haven't got it, and I've had to sort of get little snippets of it because it's not on YouTube. It's not on the usual streaming services. So I found it on a site where you sort of download tracks to buy, very cheaply, and I just got snippets of some of the songs, but I don't think I'll ever buy it, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.6. Okay, then coming in at number 4, we have the 5th album. It was released in September '69, and it's Rock and Roll, and it's the last studio album prior to their initial breakup in the spring of 1970. So it's Carmine apiece, Tim Bogart, Vince Martell and Mark Stein. First track is Need Love. This is great. Some great guitar work from Vince on this. Just a killer track. Love that track. Lord in the Country. This is a very soulful track. Great drumming of Carmine on that. I do like that. I Can't Make It Alone. Great vocal from Mark. Strong track. Absolutely killer track that is. Street Walking Woman the Beat. It's a little bit disjointed. Not a great fan of this one, but I do like some of the guitar work by Vince on it. Pretty good. Church Bells of St. Martin's. Great guitar work. Then we have a cover of the Windmills of Your Mind. Great track. was in the film, the original Thomas Crown Affair film, of course. Lots of people have recorded it, but the one that everyone sort of knows is Noel Harrison and Dusty Springfield. It's probably the worst version of that song I've ever heard. It doesn't work at all. Then we have a track called If You've Got to Make a Fool of Somebody. Freddie and the Dreamers did a version of this. It's thing, and I prefer that. This is alright. It's a bit more psychedelic. Some very interesting tracks on this. The covers really let it down there. They're just terrible covers. More original songs, please, and this would have been pretty good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.8. Okay, then coming in at number 3, we've got the 4th album from early 1969, and it's called Near the Beginning. On here we've got Carmine Appice, Tim Bogart, Vince Martell and Mark Stein. First gun is Shotgun. This is one of the great songs by Vanilla Fudge. Classic song. The drumming by Carmine is absolutely fantastic. Some Velvet Morning, very psychedelic. Love the vocal from Mark and that eerie keyboard. It's a very strong track. Where is Happiness? This is so chilled out. I love Carmine's gentle, intricate drumming on this. Absolutely killer track. Then we get the Break Song, which is a live song that was recorded at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. I like it, but at 23 minutes it goes on. Cut it down to 10, it'd have been alright. But we got everyone off doing solos, and I don't want to hear that on the studio album. Yeah. Love the studio tracks, but I think that live track just goes on and on and on. So I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2. We got to 1967 now for the debut album. It's just called Vanilla Fudge. So it's Carmine, Tim, Vincent, Mark. First track up here is a cover version of the Beatles song Ticket to Ride. I have mixed feelings about this one. I love the Hammond organ. I love Carmine's drumming on it, but the over version of this is pretty good. Then we get People Get Ready Again, which is a Curtis Mayfield track. It's a little bit better than the version on the previous album that they re-recorded. I do like the keyboards on this, it's pretty good. I like this version. She's Not There by the Zombies. It's a fair version of this song. It's a little bit too slow, but you know it's that song. Then we get Bang Bang from Sonny Bono. I like both versions of this song, but this is quite clever. It's a slow song anyway, so they haven't had to slow it down. But what they have, they've beefed it up. The rich Hammond organ on this is terrific. Great track. Then we get a track called Illusions of My Childhood, which is 20 seconds of some drumming by Carmine. Then we get a version of the Supremes, You Keep Me Hanging On Again. Oh dear. It goes on a little bit too bit of a shot. But I think it's because they slow it right down. To get everything in it, it's a bit longer. Then we get Illusions of My Childhood Part 2. Now this is some Hammond organ from Mark Stein. Then we get a track called Take Me For A Little While. I like this, it's very psychedelic. Great drumming from Carmine, I don't mind that. Illusions of My Childhood Part 3, another 22 seconds. Yeah, it's a nice little intro. And then we get a terrible version of Eleanor Rigby. Not very good. Again, it's just a mixed bag. I like their own track, Take Me For A Little While. It's absolutely killer track. And some good covers, and then some pretty bad ones as well. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. But my favourite album, my number one album, is their third album released in June of 1968, sorry, and it's Renaissance. It's the first album that actually had lots of original material on. It's a shame they didn't make any more original, because it's brilliant, this album. So it's Carmine, Tim, Vince and Mark. The first track is an epic called The Sky Cried and When I Was a Boy. Absolutely brilliant track. Some great guitar work here from Vince. And what the highlight is Mark's keyboard work. It's a really, really strong track. Then we get Thoughts. Again, it's dominated by that lovely keyboard tone from Mark. Some nice guitar work again. Absolutely killer track. Paradise. It's so eerie. The vocal is very atmospheric. Got some really rich keyboard on this again. It's a great song to listen to. Then we got That's What Makes a Man. My favourite track on here. It's a good old rocker, psychedelic, keyboards, great drumming. It's a really good track. Then we get The Spell that comes after. Never been a fan of this. It's a bit, as I say, a little bit dreary. Faceless People, another great track. Some great guitar work from Vince on this. One of the best tracks on the album. And then they do Season of the Witch. Again, Donovan. Out of the two versions I've done of this is the better version. It's okay. I like this album. It's got a lot of good original stuff on it, and it's a shame they didn't do more original stuff, because they were good songs. Even the covers on here are not too bad, actually. So it's one of the albums I really do like listening to, and it's one that I actually own. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. So there we go. There's a little bit of Vanilla Fudge. Very strange band for me. I can. You have to be in the mood to listen to Vanilla Fudge. But I mean, I do like this album. I've only got the first 3 albums, because the others I just don't get on with them very well. So, but I've enjoyed listening to them as ever. But if you're a big Vanilla Fudge fan, do you think any of their albums should be put in the Battle Royale? If you think that it is, go to the video and put your nominee in the comments, and we'll add it to the list. Nice list now. And if you want to go and listen to the albums that are already been nominated, the shorts are in. If you go to the shorts playlist, you'll find in there all the albums that have been nominated so far. 17th of September is the closing date, so you've got just under a month. So if you can go and enter any album you wish. Just make sure that it's not already there. Now, if there are not enough to make up a draw, we're going to do a separate draw to put your second albums and pick how many we need out of that. So some of you may have a chance of having 2 albums in the main draw. Okay, I'll be back very shortly with another classic album, and we're continuing on with some reggae this month. Just have a bit of sunshine. The weather's not too bad at the moment. So we're going to have a look at another one of these Jamaican bass bands called the Congas, and the Heart of the Congas. So I'll see you for that later. Bye for now.